Alright, it's been a little bit over a week now since I've been using my Apple Watch Series 6, and you shouldn't buy it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. No, actually, there is some truth in that particular joke. Not all jokes have truth, but that one kind of did. But the reality is, I know throughout this year, I've basically been saying I don't really plan on keeping my Apple Watch Series 6. I might get one to review, but that's about it. And because I was able to sell my Apple Watch Series 4 for a really good deal, I am keeping the Series 6. But if I was not able to sell my Series 4 at a really good price that was able to cover the entire price of my product red Series 6 in all its glory, then I would not have kept it. And honestly, I can't even recommend the Series 6 to that many people because the features it offers over what's now available, you know, this whole video is basically going to be about why you should probably buy the Apple Watch SE. So what are the biggest changes with the Series 6? You know, the funny thing about when a lot of people were talking about it coming out was that half of the things we talked about had to do with watch bands. It was all about how Apple had this weird launch of the solo loop, and sometimes they were too tight or sometimes they were too loose. For a while they were saying you had to return the whole watch, and then they quickly changed that and said actually you can just return the watch band. And then I saw a few people with frayed versions of the braided loop, which is $100 by the way. And there was so much talk about watch bands probably because those were almost more interesting than the changes brought to the Series 6 itself. The biggest one people mention is the blood oxygen level sensor, and I made a video explaining why I think the Series 6 is one of the smallest upgrades of all time, and that was most people's response. But the truth is, after being able to use blood oxygen level checking on the watch, it's really not terribly useful. The information, I can't really do much with it, and as Dave 2D talked about in his video on the Apple Watch Series 6, your wrist is not a very accurate place to check for oxygen levels. And I've even got a few reports of people that have issues with their lungs that were really excited to get an Apple Watch because it had blood oxygen level tracking, and now they've found out that it's so inaccurate compared to, you know, more medical grade equipment, which, to be fair, Apple does disclose that. They do mention that, you know, this shouldn't be used as 100% accurate, you know, it's not a medical device, but if you want to get a rough idea, I guess you can. But frankly, it's kind of a fear feature. That's kind of how I would describe it, is it's like convincing you that, oh shoot, I don't really know what my blood oxygen level is. Maybe I should get a Series 6 so I know, like, hey, what is it? Or maybe if it drops down, it'll be important. But maybe it's just because I'm fairly young and I'm hesitant to use the word healthy, but I haven't really had any problems with my blood or my lungs or my heart. Weird flex, but okay. And the truth is, the blood oxygen thing is almost always above 96% for me, and it's not really something you need to do consistently, unless maybe you do some type of high elevation hiking and maybe you're concerned about your oxygen levels as you climb higher up a mountain or something like that. But in my opinion, the vast majority of users do not need the Series 6. The best thing the Series 6 has going for it is the colors and the finishes it comes in. The faster charging, I can't really say is that useful anyway because most people are charging their watch at night and it's not even that much substantially faster. I mean, you can shave maybe 30 minutes off of previous charge times, but the truth is, I just don't know that many people that were like dropping their watch on their charger and needing to get somewhere in a hurry and were hoping that it would charge up to 100%. Not that common of an example, especially when the battery life is as good as it is with the Series 6. So I have two different tests I conducted in the past week. For the first few days, I left the always on display on with my Series 6 to see if the battery life was about the same as my Series 4. And the good news is it was, so it's very different from my Series 5 review last year where I noticed that I just left the always on display on and the battery was typically a lot lower by the end of the day than it was with my Series 4. So I wondered if that always on display had something to do with it. And it sounds like it may have just been a watchOS bug that was later fixed, but if you guys wanted my updated opinions on the battery life, I was now able to end the day with a 65 to 70% charge when I was using the always on display. And then once I got kind of used to that, I switched it off because similar to my review last year, I've just discovered I'm not that big a fan of an always on display. Partially because I've had it off now for the past few days with the Series 6 and it's not a problem. It always turns on when I need it to. The ever so slight flick of the wrist is able to light up the screen and there's just not any situations where I run into and I'm like, oh dang, I wish the watch face would turn on. on. It's ever so sensitive, and I would rather just save battery life if possible. And that's where I'm happy to report that today is Friday morning, and I have not charged my Apple Watch since Tuesday night. So I went all of Wednesday, all of Thursday without charging my watch, and here we are at the beginning of Friday, and it's at 30%. So it will probably easily last me the rest of today, maybe last a little bit of tomorrow, but I'm gonna go ahead and say that if you're using your watch mildly, you know, you're not doing a ton of activity workouts or, I don't know, scribble texting for hours at a time. If you're just using it on occasion like I am, you could pretty easily make it 3 full days without a charge. That's when you don't use the always on display. So in case some of you were wondering if it makes a difference by turning it off, in my experience, it did. And I'm also not doing sleep tracking or anything like that because I never found that information very useful in the first place. Like, thanks Apple, yeah, I know if I'm not sleeping well, okay? You don't have to remind me that I woke up a lot last night, thank you. And you know, long term, I have kind of similar opinions with blood oxygen monitoring as I do with the ECG. It's really cool and it's amazing that Apple is able to build an FDA approved electrocardiogram into the Apple Watch and you can check it on the go. That's really impressive, but I really don't do it that much. In my entire ownership of the Series 4, which I had since launch day in 2018, I maybe did an ECG like less than 20 times. And if you are known to be someone who has heart issues and you want to keep track of that, then I imagine you probably already have some type of medical grade equipment that you can check in with, and hopefully you're seeing a doctor. But my point is, don't put all of your eggs in one basket and just be like, well, there's no way I can have heart problems because I bought an Apple Watch and it would let me know. It does help. It's a little bit handy to have around, but if you're young, keep in mind the ECG only works accurately if you're 22 or older. So if you're part of those younger demographics, then I don't see the ECG as being incredibly useful, and you use it just a handful of times throughout ownership. It's not something you'll do on a regular basis. And the Apple Watch SE still has a heart rate monitor, so if they notice a irregular heart rate or your heart rate escalating really quickly, it can still detect that, so there's still some medical benefits to just getting the SE. The real question is, does the extra features the Series 6 offer justify that extra price that you end up paying? And for some of you who maybe really care about an always-on display and blood oxygen monitoring and the ECG, I guess some people can justify it, but for me, I just was really in love with the product red design because people have been watching me for a few years. You know, I've always wanted a product red Apple Watch ever since 2017. So the fact that we finally got one, like, I would have bought this if it was the SE. I would have bought a product red Series 4 if that's all they announced last month. I was just in love with the idea of having a red watch, and because I sold my Series 4, this basically cost me nothing. I'm essentially losing my old watch and replacing it with a newish one. That's the driving force for me keeping it. But if any of you out there have a Series 3 or older and you're thinking about upgrading and you want my personal recommendation, I mean, other channels might give you different opinions, but if you're just asking me personally, I think Apple Watch SE is the best deal you can go for. Or if you don't like the SE because it only comes in aluminum and you want something more stainless steel or more heavy duty with that sapphire glass, then I also highly recommend you check out the certified refurbished page for the Series 4 and 5 because you'll be able to get those way cheaper than if you buy a stainless steel Series 6. And even right now, I just did a quick little search on the Apple Store app and found 5 or 6 different stainless steel options to choose from, and Apple certified refurbished is basically brand new, so don't worry about there being scratches or anything on it. They replace a lot of the components and they'll make it feel like a brand new watch, just with some dyed down packaging. And of course, you'll be able to find the Series 5 or 4 on sale at different third-party places if you want to, so I'd highly recommend doing some hunting, as I call it, to see if you can find a good deal on a 4 or a 5, because those are still great watches today. And if any of you out there already have a Series 4 or 5, then no, the Series 6, in my opinion, not worth the extra money, only if there's just some new color, like you love that new blue watch, or you love that graphite steel, and you're able to sell your old Apple Watch, and it can completely offset the price of the Series 6. I mean, at the end of the day, it is your money. I'm just saying that most of the reasons someone should go with the Series 6 have to do with aesthetics. The 20% faster processor, you're not going to notice when checking the time and managing notifications. There's not a bunch of processing intensive stuff you do on your watch. The blood oxygen monitoring, in my opinion, is somewhat interesting for the first couple days, and then you just kind of forget it's there. The ECG you will only use a handful of times throughout the life of the ownership, and the always-on display being slightly brighter, in my opinion, didn't really make that big a difference either. Using the always-on display again was kind of distracting. There'd be a lot of times when I'm recording a video and I can see myself and the watch face still turn on, and I'd be like, oh man, it's just draining a little bit more battery now. And I think there is something to be said about the look and the cleanness of having just a completely off glass front to the Apple Watch. Like, look how simple that is. It's so clean and minimal that there's no data there because I'm not looking at it, so I'm not wasting energy, and that means the watch can last longer. And just the look of having that matte red aluminum around the glass, it's just so satisfying. It's so clean. It's so pure. I love the look at it. I don't know how else to visualize how satisfying it is other than just... You know what I mean? It's satisfying. It's better to look at. So unless you're just flushed with cash and you just want a new watch for the sake of it looks newer and it stands out, whether it's red or blue or some new stainless steel option, then I would still say, you know, functionality-wise, it's a very, very minor year in terms of upgrades. And frankly, I've always wanted a red watch, but here I am about a week after using it, and I've kind of just gotten used to it. You get accustomed to the look of your watch. After just a few weeks, it just becomes your watch, and you don't really stare at it as much or don't really think much about it. And on the website, Apple has a way of making things stand out and look so clean and different and cool and epic looking, and it'll never look like that on your actual wrist. Eventually it just becomes that thing that collects smudges and you use for Apple Pay and texts and unlocking your Mac, and it just kind of sits there and you get used to it, which is why, in my opinion, Apple Watch SE, amazing deal. Definitely consider getting one of those, unless you like some color option the Series 6 has going for you. But you're welcome to disagree with me. I completely understand. But either way, I think that Apple has really, really perfected this design. We've had it since 2018 now. We're going into 2021 with the same design as the Series 4, which is, in my opinion, the best Apple Watch they've ever made. Nothing has come close to that upgrade. And maybe next year, maybe towards the end of 2021, we can finally get a new design, something that looks more modern and even better than the Series 4, 5, and 6. And now the SE, of course, which Apple has kind of ironed out and perfected. So I'm hoping for thinner bezels, an even larger display, and just something that can be a bit more noticeable from the outside, that it's actually truly an upgrade while still being fashionable, of course. This is your Alp Sheep here. I'll see you in the next one.